welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is award winning and best selling author, no other than Miss Margaret Ann Philbrick.
Hi, Daniel.
Welcome. Yes, welcome to Book 101, Miss Margaret.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having
Yes.
me. Thank you for loving books.
Yes, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Of course. I started writing professionally in 2009. Prior to that, I taught writing and literature and humanities. Believe it or not, eighth grade, seventh and eighth grade is my favorite age to teach. Most people find that just crazy, but I love that age. I have three kids, and recently, within the last year, have had three grandsons. So I
Wow.
am on a triangle of writing between St. Louis, Nashville, and Wisconsin, which is where I'm from. And my mother was an artist. She was really the main artistic influence in my life growing up. I grew up in Chicago, and she was always taking me to the Art Institute of Chicago and inspiring me with her own art. She was a painter, she was an oil painter. And my very first book I did with my mother, and she did all the oil painting illustrations for the book. So yeah,
Interesting.
so she's a big part of the art side of our family, and it's been really neat to do this book, House of Honor, and just think about how her art and taking me to museums when I was a kid used to be kind of a drag. But now, as an adult, I'm so grateful for it. I'm so glad that she made me go and that we did that. So yeah,
Certainly.
it's been a joy. This book has been a long time coming. It was 9 years in the making, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think it's gorgeous. I love that the publisher put 17 color images of Caravaggio's paintings in the book, and they help tell the story as well as the words. And in all of my books, I try to give the reader more than just the words on the page. So yeah.
Certainly. So, Miss Margaret Ann Philbrick, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, what is the central plot of House of Honor?
The plot is based on a true event. So, in some cases, you might call this story true crime as the category. It's also historical fiction. But because it's based on an actual crime, which is the heist of a nativity painting by the artist Caravaggio. He was a Renaissance artist. He lived from 1570 to 1610. And he painted two nativity paintings. One of them was on the wall in a oratorio in Palermo, Italy, in Sicily. And back on October 17th, 1969, a couple of thieves broke into the building and they cut out this giant painting. They cut it out of the frame with a box cutter knife and they rolled it up. Most people think that they rolled it up in a rug. There were no paint chips found on the floor, and the painting when it was taken was several hundred years old. So that was really interesting that that didn't happen. So they think they probably put it in something to protect it, and they rolled up the painting and they took it out of there, and it has never been recovered. Today, that painting would be it's priceless. I mean, it's probably well over it's hundreds of millions of dollars in value. So everyone wants to know what happened to it. I found this out when I was in Italy and I thought, what in the world? What in the world? Why did someone take it? Why did anyone
Yes.
take the painting? I mean, I just was dying to know. So I did a lot of research to try to learn about Caravaggio. And in the research, I found my way pretty deep into a story about the Vatican and the mafia, the Sicilian mafia, which was the origin of heroin trafficking back in the 60s. They really came into big notoriety because of that. And so it seemed like, honestly, really based on the research, it seemed like the mafia either still has the painting today
Hmm.
or it was so badly damaged when it was taken that there's a lot of theories about where it is right now. So I just love this story. I really thought it'd be fun to weave a story together that has elements of the Vatican, kind of the financial realm of the Vatican. Which, I mean, Catholic Church is very wealthy and they have a lot of amazing art. And the partnership between the mafia and the Vatican, and then two Italian families, one from Sicily, one from the north of Italy, and their sons, their oldest sons, and how they meet up in Rome and they get embroiled in this quest to take the painting, and so that's where the story goes.
Interesting indeed. So, what are the main characters involved in the heist?
So Orazio Bordoni is the son of the Bordoni family, which is they're from Lombardy, and that is where Caravaggio actually was from. And so I set his family up in the north of Italy, and then the Giotto family, which is the mafia family, I set them down in the south, down in Sicily. And Niccolo Giotto is the other main character. He is the oldest son in that family. He has two sisters, and they come together in Rome. They meet each other, and they become very good friends. And they also there's a girl, and of course, there's a girl involved, and her name is Lena. And so they all become great friends, and there's a little bit of tension there because Orazio and Lena, they become boyfriend and girlfriend, and you as the reader are wondering, oh gosh, is Niccolo going to steal this girl? He's from a mafia family. You don't really know if he's a good guy or a bad guy for a while in the story. But they all end up in Sicily, and then the dynamic turns around Orazio becoming part of the mafia family, and he and Niccolo become best friends. And then the heist of the painting comes into the plot.
So, Miss Margaret, how does the book explore the themes of art, crime, and history?
It really does take a good look at possibilities. There's been a lot of very big art heists over the last, I would say, 70 years. And the Gardner Museum heist in Boston is the biggest art heist in the United States. Those paintings also have never been found. And so the book really does tap into the history of what we know about this past 75 years of art crime, which is the thought that the mafia is very much behind these heists because when you are selling a lot of heroin, you can only do so much with all that cash. And they were putting it in warehouses. They were just stacking it up back in the 60s in warehouses. And that became very, inconvenient. And so you can put a lot of money into an underground heist of a painting and make that be what is brokered in those kinds of deals. So that sort of gave us the thread, and gave me the thread of, these unknowns still haven't been found, numerous paintings, and really taking a look at what is the mafia doing with these. A lot of people think they still have these paintings, and they use them in their big commission meetings as a way of showing the notoriety of the family. So if they have a big commission meeting and all the different heads of the families come together, an object gets shown to everyone that is new. And it's something that is very, very valuable that they have taken, basically, and encountered. So that's a bit of the history of it and what people think. But these big crimes, I mean, they're unsolved, so we don't really know.
So, Miss Margaret, let's talk about the historical and artistic elements of the book. How accurately does the book depict the real life theft of Caravaggio's nativity?
That's a good question, Daniel. That was a core quality for me that had to be accurate. The book is fictional. It's historical fiction. The family's everything that happens with the sons, Niccolo and Orazio, is made up. But In the book, next to, I have a copy of it here, next to the art, I'm going to show it to you. There's the
God.
picture, but then there's also like a parchment paper. And on the parchment, there is a diary entry from Caravaggio that goes with that picture that he painted at that time. So this is the Card Sharps painting. It was painted in 1594. And so this is what is going on in his life back then. And so I had to make sure that was extremely accurate because I knew that people who were, they're called Caravaggisti, and those are people
Mm-hmm.
who are experts in Caravaggio. They would read it, and it had to be true. It had to be true. I mean, it had to represent his life in the way that scholars really know. There's not a lot we know. He didn't write anything down, but he had three biographers. So we do know quite a bit about his life from them and from their depiction of what he was doing. And then, of course, from his paintings. I mean, the paintings is really what tells the big story, and that's another reason why they had to be in the book. But all of those journal entries are accurate.
Congratulations for
Oh,
being
thank you.
accurate.
Oh, thank
Miss
you.
Margaret, thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Oh,
sharing your books to the world.
oh, of course.
So, what insights does the book offer about the black market for stolen art?
Um, it definitely conveys that it is a really high stakes game that is going on all over the world. I do bring in Yakuza to the story
Yes.
because they are a really big player in the mafia, and they're obviously out of Japan. Um, they have a role in the book, and the financier, who's the very underground character in the book, he you could say he himself, even though he is a banker, he's called the banker in the book. He is part of this interconnected web of financing projects for the mafia, financing projects for the Vatican, financing and trading art, which is stolen art with Yakuza. And he is brokering all of these deals through the book. And he's another character where you're not really sure if he is going to turn out to be actually a heroic character in the book, or is he just a total scumbag? And so people have asked me if I will write the prequel of this book, which is with the life of this banker, because he is a pretty fascinating character. He lives in an underground bunker, which is concrete block, and he does not go outside. So he has a really subterranean life, and it is provided for by the people who, quote, take care of him. And he's extremely OCD. He does yoga in his little office every morning before he talks to anyone on his little mat. He's really quite old, but he's kind of like a goblin in a way. So he represents kind of the crossing over of morality and for the sake of finance and drawing alliances. And in my research, there actually were people like that. Back in the 60s, there are real people that were doing that, and his character is based on one of them. And I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to die.
Yes, certainly. So let's talk about the character development. Who is the protagonist and what drives their actions in the story?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, in writing, you have to really have internal and external motivations behind your characters. And the internal motivation behind the main character, Orazio Bordoni, is that he is miserable uh, in the sort of committed life, I will say, that his father is requiring of him to run the family construction business. And they are very wealthy because they build the roads in northern Italy, and generations of their family has done that, and they've built them through the Alps, which has connected northern Italy to the rest of Europe. And all the people in the family work for this business, And he does not want to do that. He is really angry about it. He doesn't want to be forced to do it. And so the book opens with he and his father having quite a face off about this. And so, an internal motivation of Orazio's is that he wants to get free from the burden of this family business. And an external motivation for Orazio is that he is passionate about art. He is a fine artist himself. He just aspires to be a collector. He wants to go to Rome and make his own way and make his own name for himself. And somehow he's going to figure out how to do that. And so that's a big driver in the meeting of Niccolo, who's the Giotto family mafia son, because Orazio does go to Rome. He leaves his family. He goes to Rome to pursue his life passion of art. And he meets Niccolo. And it turns out, of course, that because they're a mafia family, they're in construction. They're in the construction business. They're building roads in Sicily. And but their son has been very protected. He's not in the inner workings of what's really going on with the drug trafficking. He was sent to Rome to get his MBA. And so they meet because he's there. And Niccolo doesn't have the full scope of what actually is going on in his family. And so, because they both have these construction family backgrounds, that's the beginning of their friendship. And then, like I said, Lena, the girl, also plays a central role in that triangle.
So, Miss Margaret, what will be your advice for those people out there want to write their novel, memoir, or stories?
For a novel, I would advise, and I do talk about this in the back of the book, there's a section in the back called the Behind the Book. And I do talk about how I found NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, which happens all over the United States every November. And I found that to be extremely helpful because you join a NaNoWriMo community and then you set word count goals for every single day of that month. And then the group that you are assigned to by a library, you get in a little online chat group, and then you begin to share your experiences and how did you do this week on meeting your writing goals. That kind of accountability really helped me get about a third of the book done in its first draft. So I wrote about a third of the book in a month because I was just committed to a pretty aggressive writing word goal. So I think joining any kind of group, be it a manuscript group, even that you are on the hook to have people evaluating your writing or guiding you and agreeing that they're going to make sure you meet your word counts. That's a really good way to get started. I've never written a memoir, so I don't know what that would be like. But for novels, that would be my best advice: is to make sure you have a really solid accountability group of writers that you're working with.
Thank you for your advice, Miss Margaret. So, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
My short term and long term goals. Ooh, Daniel,
Yes.
you asked such big questions. Oh my gosh. Well, short term, I have written quite recently a children's picture book, and I am looking for the artist to illustrate that right now. And I really hope that that gets published. I love that story. And I also am working on a nonfiction book right now, which is called Growing Home, is the name of it. And I am excited to finish that. I am about 60 or 70 pages into that. And so my goal is to finish that, and then obviously begin revising it and refining it. So, and then my final third goal is to research the next novel that I'm going to do. I have to take a break from novel writing and do other things for a while because it's so intense. It is like swimming underwater, and you sort of live under the water while you're doing a novel, and you just come up and take breaths, and then you go back down into the lives of your characters because you're living with these other people all the time, and you're thinking about them everywhere you go, and you're having conversations with them, and they're talking to you, and you're dreaming about them at night. It's like a really different world. So I have to get a break from that. I can't just, I'm not one of these people that just can write novel after novel. I can't do that. So those are my current projects. So researching is the goal, tertiary goal, which would be the next novel, but that's after I finish these other two books.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Margaret, and
Thank you.
looking forward for more empowering books to come.
Thank
So,
you.
so let's talk about themes and symbolism of the book. What does House of Honor suggest about the relationship between power, crime, and culture?
Okay, so the title of the book, it's called that because it has everything to do with power. The book is definitely a huge theme of the book is how do we use the power that we have and how do we abuse it? And so that's that you can imagine. The Bordoni family is very powerful in the North. They're very wealthy and they have a great reputation as doing all these good things for culture. You're building roads. I mean, you're allowing people to move around. And then the Giotto family, they have their own reputation down in Palermo. And so the question is, how are we honoring our family by the way that we use the power that has been given to us? And that is one of the main themes. And the question, of course, for the reader is which of these houses, the Bordonis or the Giottos, is actually a house of honor? Italian culture in this book, it's set in Italy. I mean, it's everything. I went to Italy a couple times. Everything about the book, as far as I know, I mean, I spent 3 years researching it, even down to the saffron anchovy pasta that they're eating in Sicily is accurate. I really am depicting the feeling, the sensory imagery, all of the smells. It's like you should be able to taste the book.
Yes,
If you're studying a book in Italy, you got to be able to taste that book.
yes.
So that's been really good. That's I would say, the cultural side of it, as well as it was really impressive to me when I was there that there is this willingness in Italy to mix church and state to where I remember seeing a shopping bag from a store that had all these little symbols all over it. And some of them were communion cups and crosses, along with fountains and trevi and art. And it was this beautiful shopping bag. And I thought to myself, this would never happen in the United States. I mean, we do not do this. We do not mix up all these things and just expect it to work out. And Italy, they kind of do. Everything
Yes.
kind of gets mixed. And family there, unlike here, is a place where the older people in culture and in the family culture are deeply honored. The nonas and the nonos and the nonas hold high esteem and honor in a family, and that is very much depicted in the book.
Certainly. So, what role does honor play in the actions of the characters?
That's all comes down to choices. The choices that are made by Orazio and by Niccolo, as well as Lena. Those are the three main characters. Lena is the love interest, as I said. I mean, those choices, those are what define how honor plays out in the book. And I think that who we honor and knowing why we honor them is very important. I think that, our own American culture has really lost sight of the virtue of honor. It's a sad, really sad reality. I think honor of our elders has been replaced with basically honoring self and a very self centered kind of focus. Whereas in Italy, that's just not the case at all. And so you can say, oh, yes, it is. Fashion is everything. Look at what they're doing in Milan, whatever. Sure. But I mean, that's a big economic driver of how they, have a productive economy is fashion. But
Yes.
when you get down to the actual family culture, and the value of honor there, it still is a strong virtue. And I really wanted to depict that in the lives of these families and the different ways that honor expresses itself. Because if you're in a mafia family, honoring the father is a very big deal. You cannot, you're not going to be happy, if you don't do that, because it's going to go badly for you. You might end up in concrete. But in the North, where Orazio is from, the choices that he makes, and the big choice that the book opens with is that he basically tells his father, "I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do your family business, life that you've planned for me. I'm doing my own life." And so he leaves. And so, choices are, it's all about that in terms of the value that is placed on honor throughout the story.
Certainly. So do you think House of Honor will be the next Godfather?
It's so fun that you would ask that or say it, because when you get a bunch of endorsements, so when you do a book,
Yes.
you have a whole bunch of people that read it in advance, and then they send their endorsements, and then the publisher chooses which ones they want to put inside of it and what do they want to put on the cover.
Yes.
And their favorite quote was the one that ended up on the cover, and it says, "The Godfather meets the Da Vinci Code with a redemptive twist." So
That's what I'm thinking in my first intro. Is it the same with Da Vinci Code too?
yeah, I mean, this is a really that's what this reader said. She's a wonderful award-winning author herself. I've read a lot of her work. I respect her work greatly. And so I was very happy they picked her quote to put on the front of the book. And obviously they did it because everybody knows The Godfather and most people know the Da Vinci Code. And by
Definitely.
saying with a redemptive twist, it gives a sense to the reader of, okay, I'm not just going to be having horses' heads in beds. There's going to be something that's positive, right? That's going to carry me through to the end. And so yeah,
Truly.
it was the perfect quote. Yeah.
Truly, truly inspiring. So before we wrap up our discussion, Miss Margaret, speaking of Italian food, please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, in its fifth season. People, fifth season. We talk about Italian cuisine with my partner, truly Italian too, Chef Alessandro Panettone, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. So please do listen to our latest episode. We are
I
reading.
will. Thanks for that hot take. That's a hot
Yes.
take, Daniel. Thank
You
you.
are most welcome. In our latest episode, we are reading our letter senders all over the world. So please do listen. Food 101, wherever you listen your podcast.
I'm
So
excited.
thank you. So, Miss Margaret, what message does the book leave readers with regarding the fate of Stalin art and its cultural impact?
I think that the message at the end, there's a lot of takeaways, and it means different things to different people based on what they bring to the book when they read it. But as far as Italian art and culture, I honestly think the takeaway is I am dying to go there. Can I go tomorrow? Because
Yes.
it's so beautiful. And the biggest exhibit of Caravaggio's art that's ever happened, ever, is going on right now in Rome. And it's at the
Nice.
Palazzo Barberini. And it even is showing paintings of his from private collections that have never been shown before. So I am going to it. My husband and I are going to it in May, and we cannot wait to see it.
Definitely, Miss Margaret Philbrick. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing, excellent novel to the world. And we are looking forward for more sequel, prequel, or whatever the series of this book. So can you
Thank
please
you.
invite our listeners to support all your books?
Of course. Yes, please. So if you go to my website, margaretphilbrick.com, There is on the home page right there a little button where you can purchase the book from Amazon, or you can hit the button that allows you to purchase it from bookshop.org so that you can get it from your local bookstore. And those are the quickest and easiest and most preferential ways to get the book.
Yes, people, I support Miss Margaret Philbrick because if you support her, as I said, more and more and more empowering novels to come.
Thank
So, Miss
you.
Margaret, thank you so much for your time.
I enjoyed it so much, Daniel. Thanks for asking such great questions.
You are most welcome. This podcast is created for you. More to come, people. See you soon.